now we can carry on. The guests who have been listening and waiting for a long time. I can see a hand up for a long time.
That's Dr. Vishnu Vishram.
No, I think Ashok hit all the main points about our relationship with India. See, India is very, very complex. And our roots are really in UP and Bihar. And as Satish correctly said, we have to build alliances with people of those two states. You see, we can't expect Gujaratis and Sindhis and people from Kerala and so forth to have much ethnic connection with us. It's simply not there. And the problem with the bureaucracy in India is that it's very, very diverse. There's very, very few people coming from UP and Bihar. So to make that breakthrough with them is very, very difficult. Nevertheless, we can link up with the state. And I think that's where we have failed for a long period of time. We have not attempted to build linkages with the states where our ancestors came from. Instead, we look at Delhi itself. So perhaps we should try our energy and effort utilizing that angle. Also, I think we should look to do some small videos, short videos rather, and show them to people in the giirmit community about ancestral linkages, about where our ancestors come from, and so forth, rather than focus on very, very long videos, which in today's environment, people don't really watch. They look for short videos. Just a few minutes. Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. I can see Dev Gosaiji.
We all recall in 2005 in Mumbai when we urged the PVD administration at that time to have a breakout session, and a lot of effort was put into it. But as Ashok said, and Vishnu just said it again, we are trying to work with all of India, when all people really only come from Bihar and UP. Before I forget, I just want to say one thing, and I'll come back to what I want to say. I have been tracing our roots in India, and I took the Howrah Express train. And that's a train we all should be familiar with. That is a train that runs from, I think, Lucknow, it leaves Delhi and goes to Calcutta. I took that train and rode the train at 10 o'clock, leaving Lucknow going, and that goes to all the towns our foreparents come from. But let's go back to the organization. You recall in Trinidad, when we celebrated the 100th anniversary of end of indentureship, we made as one of our decisions to try and establish a group in all of the 22 diaspora countries. I think this would be a wonderful starting opportunity for all of us. If those of us who are listening in today and those who share our common belief in organizing, let's try and form a small organization in the country where we are so we can complete the 22. And out of that, we try and now find a thread to link the mala together, if I use that analogy. I think it's doable. I have been on the phone all morning today with a group in Lucknow who are trying to do similar thing, and they are looking. So we may have to detach ourselves from the Delhi government. I attended the Bihar conference in Mumbai and other places too. In New Jersey, they have an annual get-together, people from Bihar. And I can say the government of Bihar in particular are very interested in linking with their brothers around the world. So we still had a wonderful opportunity, and so did Ashok, that let us work with the state government, where our foreparents came from. And I know we have people on listening in here from some of the other states. We don't mean to disconnect with you, but we ask you to help us to bring add value. But I think it's we should, and I think right now the Bihar government would be glad to establish some linkage in the diaspora countries. But I stand ready, willing, and able to help in whatever way, be it in the US or down in the Caribbean, to share the burden to help establish what can be a viable organization.
With that said, let's ask Mr. Madhur Patak, who is very much prominent in our IDC in New York, back and Calcutta, back and forth, and IAGCC for his comments, because he's been listening very patiently.
Well, just one request to Mr. Gosai. I personally don't have any contacts in the Bihar government. If you or anybody else has got any contact, please email it to me and I will write to them. Yeah. And Ashok, yes.
With a friend like you, I don't need any enemy that without notice you put me on the stage. Well, coming back,
yeah, go ahead.
now, Ashok, it is a very worthwhile exercise, but to add to Mr. Dev Gosai, I would say it is, and you should remember the history. It is not Bihar alone. It is Jharkhand also. So that means you don't have to only approach Bihar government, you also have to approach Jharkhand government. And fortunately, that the most of these people, there's a part of UP, Bihar, Jharkhand, Kolkata, Assam, in those days, it was all part of what is called Bengal province, not Bihar or not Jharkhand. And that is why Calcutta was chosen as the departure point. So I would say, like Ashok, you know my original idea that these Girmitians, they must have, and the PIOs, and of course some of the NRIs like me, they must have a very strong headquarters, secretariat kind of thing, functional outside India. And they should coordinate, of course, Mr. Rai is offering that, coordinate with all the 5 state governments. Because there are some residents of, a substantial number of residents from Jharkhand and West Bengal also, as you know. So my idea of creating a overseas Girmitia Center, Ashok, that you have proposed to the government of India and also government of Calcutta, the West Bengal, because no matter what happens, that UP, Bihar has a very sizable resident population in Calcutta, and they have a very significant political connection with UP, Bihar and Jharkhand. And you know that recently the government in West Bengal gave a stunning blow to the sitting government, but that doesn't mean that there is lack of coordination between the central government and all the state governments, the politics apart. So my suggestion will be, like Mr. Rai was suggesting, that she should write to all the state governments. All the state governments. Obviously, UP and Bihar and Jharkhand will come forward little more earlier than others, because they will have a number and they will probably see the political potential behind it. And that is the only way that you can make some mark. If they don't see any political potential, then they won't have any interest. But I don't agree, Ashok, with you on one thing, that the Indians do not connect with the Girmitians. That is not true. Ordinary Indians, they do. And top people in the bureaucracy and the government, they give lip service. To convert the lip service to the action, the responsibility comes on us, those who are outside India. The man-to-man connection is terrific, because I remember when the Prime Minister of Trinidad went to her village, and Dev Gosai has been, Ashok, you have been honored by UP government at one time. So I wouldn't say that there is lack of interest. So I wish you all the best, and I would again emphasize that you guys do not have an overseas centralized place to say that if you want to study something, you come here. If you want to go somewhere, you come here. We have tried sporadically, but we have never been able to do something, centralized way that the world can look at it. We have so many, you people have so many illustrious personalities in New Zealand to Fiji to Canada to this, but nobody has made a and one place in overseas that can really, reach out to everybody in the world, including those who are not.
Yeah.
That's it.
Thank you very much. I think we need one in overseas in the Giirmit diaspora and one in India as well, probably in Lucknow.
Absolutely,
or
absolutely.
somewhere there. Yes, thank you.
Okay. I actually would like to ask for us to re-emphasize the need for bilateral trade between India and the various diaspora elements and countries. Because as we are aware, the AstraZeneca vaccine is the world's most popular vaccine. Yet, whilst we were trying to procure it, we lose standing. In addition to that, Guyana has now a very large and significant deposit of oil and gas, and India has many exports and companies that are prepared to invest in Guyana. But we need to have these type of bilateral priorities established so we can actually do commerce.
Yeah, agree. I think, Ashok ji, if we can somehow link into Yogi ji and Nitish ji and other CMs of our, what I call the giirmit states in India, that
What
could be possible.
What I can do is to look at the bilateral trade, and it's more of a reaction. China has taken over Africa, and then the Indian government woke up. It's only when oil was available and the sanctions against Iran that India started looking at the Caribbean. So it's really a reactionary decision making rather than a strategic one. So there are opportunities, but I don't know if the strategic thinking is along those lines like China has. But in the meantime, we have to do what we have to do. Okay, so we come back to Prakash. I'm sorry, go ahead.
All right. I've taken well to all the comments made. And unless we have this across the board uniformity, no one would take it seriously. Things like Vishnu, Mahadev, and so, when you come to think about Indian government reaction, they only deal with governments. Particularly, and all of the people Dr. Vishnu would know there, that Indian government assistance to peoples of Indian origin elsewhere whenever in trouble, as happened in Fiji and Guyana. They are last to make a voice or break voice in anything that would be other than rocking the boat. Ashok's comments are a kind of a middle of the road approach. And in saying that, I would like to be a little bit more pragmatic. Indian government has been very unhelpful. It has been very politic. And over the years, Gopio and such groups have been consorting with the Indian government. If at all, with regional governments can be of a greater benefit, then that's the way to go. But first, we have to have this taxonomy cleared out. Who are the giirmits? Who are indentured servants? We have a different perspective. To use, in my view, to say I'm a giirmit or I'm an indentured laborer or offspring of indentured laborer is kind of desultory. It's kind of making me feel to an Indian that I'm speaking to of a lesser being. Whereas, in fact, I'm quite fluent in English. And in communication, I feel I have an upper hand because I can communicate in a language of communication which happens to be English, because most of the world understands and knows English quite ably. Coming on the cultural point of view, we are very poor and away. Our countries, where many countries have little knowledge of what comprises a cultural essence like ethnicity. It ties in with language. And if we do not have that, then from an Indian perspective, we are very diluted. We are a different breed of Indian origin people. And we are now trying to reconnect. No, we are not trying to reconnect. We have our separate identities. We have we have a cultural past. We understand things. However, unlike Mauritius and perhaps Fiji and perhaps Suriname, the English system of acculturation were a little bit different from Dutch. And so we who came from different parts of India, and I think in Guyana there were much more of that. And Dr. Pathak was quite right. My people came from Jharkhand. Maternal side, they came from far away as Amritsar. So it was a mishmash of people coming from everywhere. And some of them might say, well, I am Jahaji. But there is no broad communality among the people in Guyana. They are all colors, all aquilinity. If one were to consult with grandparents, there were a sprinkling of Gujaratis, a sprinkling of, no, not Punjabi, a sprinkling of people from Bihar. We look like people from Bihar, in stature and all of that, but really we came from anywhere. My first point of contact is go with Dr. Satish and whomsoever can put together with Ashook. We can cobble through across these 22 countries that Dave says we have, and have a tri-quarter, perhaps one in New York, one in London, and one in India. And we can take it from there if we have a clearance of this taxonomic structure of who we are and what we are. There are many of us in academic fields, many of us are old, many of us are in trade and business as Deo and such people are. And we can communicate little by little and consolidate this field of peoples of Indian origin whom we think we are. And we can dispel and clarify ourselves into a specific, recognizable group of people. Rather than, I'm an Indian, or rather, I'm an indentured Indian, or rather, I'm an overseas Indian. We can find a name that we find some commonality in. And in doing so, my first and foremost, not ambition, my foremost need would be if we have some political, if we can join or have some political strength through this amalgam. For instance, I recall, as some of the folks here recalled, when the issue happened in Fiji. We had a gentleman, Sunil Dutt, came to New York and educated us, and most of the world didn't know. Most of the people in the various countries where Indian people live do not know about one another. We should have a map and have a cultural kind of expose. I think a secretariat somewhere can expedite these things. Gentlemen, I give it over back to you.
I have one comment to make on that. I remember that in that fundraiser we had in New York for a hurricane devastation in Fiji. And it so happened that Devanand, the actor, was in town, and his manager called me and said, "Can he come?" I said, "Sure." And Dave Gosai and I arranged the event at the restaurant. And he was there, and his speech was amazing. He said, "I'm so glad to see so many of you from Fiji here trying to contribute to your homeland." And I tapped him on the shoulder. I said, no one from Fiji is here. They're all from the Caribbean. He said, "Oh, that makes it much more amazing." So, yeah. Um, next is our Professor Ganjam. I'm sorry you had to speak.
Yeah, thank you very much. Uh, Actually, I fully agree with the Mridul Pathak ji when he says that problem lies with the government and bureaucracy, not with the people. In fact, people from this region, UP, Bihar, Jharkhand, they are always ready to welcome their brethren open arms. Uh, I have a slightly different experience to share with most of you. I think any attempt to connect descendants of indentured laborers. I'm using indentured laborers because I saw there was a little confusion over Girmitia, Kantki, and so on and so forth. Probably, if time permits, I'll just come to that also. Actually, whenever a letter comes from the central government to the district magistrate, he forwards that letter to the village bureaucracy. And village bureaucracy doesn't function in India unless there is somebody who's pursuing the matter by paying some bribe. It is well-known fact. All of us, we are very much aware. So, in case of any one of you trying to trace your ancestry through bureaucracy, 90% chances are that you would not succeed. What's the way out? We experimented something differently. A Tidarian friend who lives in Canada, Hemraj, uh, he came to attend Pravasi Bharati Sammelan in Varanasi. He forwarded his papers to me, and I contacted a friend in Magad University. I teach at Banaras Hindu University, which is 250 kilometers from Magad. He, professor from the university and his students, they conducted research and they found that the district from which his ancestors had migrated now falls in another district. It is no that district has no longer the jurisdiction of the area where his ancestors had migrated. So my argument is that any attempt to reach out to the ancestral village is most likely to be defeated unless proper research is conducted and somebody from the local population who is willing to welcome is contacted before your paper reaches to the bureaucracy. In my own experience and assessment, I think educational institutions, not necessarily big universities like Banaras University, Hindu University, though we are trying to establish a small center in Banaras Hindu University, which is directly deal with the Girmitia's problem, indentured laborers problem. And therefore, to my suggestion is any attempt by the descendants of indentured laborers to open an office in Calcutta and Lucknow is most welcome. But at the same time, please make a direct connection with the universities because the universities and educational institutions that's where they conduct research. That's where exactly many of those villages do not exist. Many of those thanas, which is mentioned in the paper, do not exist. Before you approach to the bureaucracy, please let some basic exercise to be done by some of the academicians and their research scholars. That is one aspect. Secondly, as far Indian government is concerned, whether it's a state government or federal government, any attempt to reach out to the common people by the government is mostly looked with suspicion because unless government has some degree of benefits in order to translate those into votes, the government doesn't try to reach directly to the common people. So there is a lot of suspicion also. Whereas when it goes through the students, academicians, often they belong to the nearby villages. So I'm not trying to reject any attempt to directly connect with the the bureaucracy that has to be there. And as you know, that there is a proactive approach by the government to connect to the villages as far indentured laborers problem is concerned. But often it is pursued that 90% cases are rejected. So that is my suggestion. Secondly, just one line comment about the culture. I think those who think that the culture of Girmitia is looked down upon, I do not agree with you, because often you try to compare your culture with the Punjabi culture, your culture with the Bombay culture.
Whilst we're waiting, can I just add on ancestral searches? Next week on Friday, I'm going to have a conversation with Shekhar Kumar from Sacramento. He has done, he's a young man, has done a huge amount of work in tracing, online tracing of ancestral roots. And I'll be talking to him.
I'm sorry, my internet went off suddenly. I think that's it. As far my position here at Banaras Hindu University is concerned, we are trying to open a small diaspora center within the Department of History where I teach for last 2 decades. I'm ready to help in my capacity as a professor at Banaras Hindu University if there is any attempt by you to connect with the university. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Sham. Once COVID allows us to travel again, I would love to come and meet you in Banaras University. We were there in 2019 in January. I think Mr. Gosai was there as well.
Yeah, this is Ramnarayan Sahadeo from Canada, Brampton. That's next door to Toronto. Namaste to everyone.
Namaste.
It looks like I missed quite a few people in 2019 January because I was there in Varanasi tracing my ancestry. And just a comment on that, I think I agree with Professor Gansham because my experience was unless they have ancestral land, it's very difficult to trace them because then you can see the land registered from generation to generation. Most of them seem to have been moving about, had very little to go back to. Like my grandfather went back twice from to India, and he couldn't find even his own brothers and sisters, and they came back to Trinidad and then to Guyana because they had no land, they had no property. And then also various waves experiences difficulty with poverty and famine and so on. So I think a very limited amount of people will find their ancestry. I also had the experience of somebody who was in the village. Again, the point was made that some of the areas were merged into bigger districts. But I found a village. The oldest person was 90 years old on a cell phone, calling around and said that he, after some discussion, unfortunately, I had 2 interpreters. A lot was being said, but I didn't know what was exchanged. He said he knew my great-grandmother. And I did some math because she left around 1886. And this gentleman in 2019 was 90 years old. So I left it at that after the subtraction and so on. So that those kind of experiences are there. There is no doubt, though, that we can do more than what we're doing. And I think there are examples. One of them is in the educational system. If we can copy from Gandhi, all he had was ashrams and universities, not temples. And in UP, Bihar, and so on, I would like to suggest, I know bureaucracy is a big problem. I've dealt with that as a lawyer for 35 years from different governments. representing refugees. We have to deal with them. That's a necessary evil, I think. But if we can have, let's say, a university from Bihar or UP, now that we have internet, connect with a educational institution in many of these countries, from where we can start lots of cultural education, language, and so on that we have lost. I think it would make a difference, and we can move faster. There's a lot of land, for example, in places like Guyana. If we can have an ashram or 10 ashrams from different private organizations, or I think they can make a big difference in the culture, the lifestyle of the people, and so on. Some of us from Guyana might remember Cove and John, which was started sometime in the 50s from 20 acres of swampland. And more recently, we have Swami Aksharananda at Cornelia Island, one of the best high schools now in the country that did not exist before 2002. I think these are just examples that we can replicate. And there's no shortage of professors. There's no shortage of people in education. We can put them together quickly, I think, in private partnerships. Thank you for the occasion to contribute. And by the way, there is still an effort going on right now for the history of indentured servants and the culture to be at what we call the CXC Caribbean exam level. I have a correspondence with the board, and they're looking for submissions before August 30th. This have been discussed a lot, so hopefully anybody can contact me and I can exchange the information, and they can make their contribution as an individual or as a group, so we can stop complaining. Namaste.
Vishnu Madhav, please go ahead.
Yes, actually, I actually want to, let me just make sure I'm on mute. Am I on mute?
Yes, we can hear
yes,
you.
I am. Yeah, actually, I want to add to what Ramnarayan said early on, in that at the Kovanjan Ashram, we have just started the rebirth of the Hindu college. And that is where we want to link it with India for the IT program. And this is one of the best forums we can use to set that link together. So I put my number on the forum there. If anyone wants to contact me, I'm one of the people who you can talk to about that university at Kovanjan, the Hindu college.
Thank you. I would rely on Ashokji to coordinate that, because unfortunately most of the people are meeting for the first time today, and Ashok knows probably everybody. So in the beginning, as we get to know each other, I'll rely on Ashokji.
Satish, there is a gentleman named Premnath Singh who has been raising his hand.
Yeah. Go ahead.
No, I was not raising my hand. I don't know what, but I listened to everyone, and you know, this whole idea of having a central area, you know, from where, you know, we could kind of you know, maybe exchange information. You know, it's going to be a sort of nucleus from which we could start. But as you know, Dr. Rai said, you know, we need to have something concrete. We need to have something that is, you know, that people could look at and say, look, you know, this is something, you know, substantial. And I agree also with Professor, you know, Sham. He was saying that how, you know, probably the best way is to pass, you know, is to go through maybe some sort of a university or something like that, you know, some sort of educational institution, because they're the ones that, you know, who will be more interested than the locals, so to speak. And also because of the fact that how, you know, because of changes that have been occurring in terms of the area now going into another state, or under the jurisdiction of another state or province. So I kind of agree with that, but we got to make a start somewhere. We got to have some sort of a nucleus, some kind of a entities, set up, and then from there we move on. That's my take.
Yeah, totally agree. It's so interesting. We know that multiple universities in Gujarat, we've got Diaspora Study Center. There's a couple in South India, but so far there's none in North India. There's none in Uttar Pradesh. There's none in Bihar, and I'm glad Professor Sham has said that there's attempts to make one in BHU, and I personally like to see one in Lucknow. We had a conference in Lucknow in 2019, but somehow the Northern Indian universities are reluctant to have a diaspora center.
With that said, Mr. Patak is a representative of JPS, which has 25 colleges in the state of Bengal.
Mm-hmm.
Would you like to add to that, Mr. Patak?
Yeah, as you know that in JIS University has proposed a diaspora center in the port of Calcutta. And the proposal was submitted to Minister of External Affairs and also to Minister of Port and Shipping. And JIS was ready to help us with the financial side, but we have not received the government sanction as yet, and the COVID for last 1.5 years, it almost stalled it. And Ashok personally was in Delhi meeting the government officials and the bureaucrats. We had a meeting with some people. And this particular university is owned by a Punjabi gentleman, Sikh gentleman, because they know that, that Bajbaj area that the Punjabis came back after the World War. You remember that incident. So they have a very big center there for the Sikhs. And this port is not very far from there. And there is one UP gentleman called Mr. Gupta, who almost controls the shippings in the Calcutta port, the goods, the clearing, forwarding, and that kind of thing. And he has also built up a big university near the port. Mr. Gupta is, I think it's called Dream Institute or something like that. Huge. We are along with a medical college. And he's from UP. So I have a feeling that this idea of centralized or regionalized center for diaspora is probably in the offing.
Is that on the Garden Reach area?
Yeah, nearby.
That will be brilliant. I think that's very important.
In fact, the Garden Reach area nearby, there was a building. During those days, it was used as a kind of a housing for the Giirmitians brought from the hinterland, and then it became the headquarters of the Indian government telephone company. And then
MK and I visited there together,
Yeah.
and we toured the places.
And in fact, government was very keen that, okay, we can take over that whole building. So things would have done. But, as I said, there is no centralized, kind of a force from people know about the presence of these people. They are confused with sometimes PIOs, sometimes NRIs. And as you know, IDC is probably true representative of the Giirmitians. Gopio, I don't think it can call itself the true representative, because Gopio has more of the people from Middle East who are very recent, NRI origin, you can call them. It's like me. Although I'm out from India for 50 years, but I've always had one or the other project in India for the last 50 years, always. So I have a little bit of experience, practical experience to get things on the ground.
Right.
I would say that New York Calcutta, Lucknow, London, and probably Sydney in Australia, this chain, or even if it is possible, Mauritius, which can connect us to Africa, which has a sizable population, or South Africa, I think it will be very easy. The resources are already there. There are a lot of people in these countries that, like, for example, Ashok can create a center in New York in no time. So can people in Sydney, so can people in Calcutta. So we can have centers in a very short time without much of financial input. But then a centralized, dissemination center or collation center, as you may call it, and with definite support from the Indian missions here and the Caribbean missions and the other countries' missions is possible. I can see it is possible, but we are not really doing that way. And definitely the universities will be very helpful, other universities. But Banaras Hindu University, again, it's a central university. A professor may create some research project, but they have their own bureaucracy also. It's a very good university, but they are under the central government. So if they are on our side, it's very helpful. If they are not, then it's an obstruction. We have to see into that. JIS University is a privately held, and I am the corporate chairman. I can say that if you people are really organized, this university will help us financially as well as academically by setting up the institute, by appointing the professors. We have about not 25, Ashok, now we have about 30 colleges, 2 medical colleges, one in Bihar, one in Bengal, and about 1 institute of advanced computing, then a couple of schools, both in Amritsar as well as in Calcutta. So we have about 35,000 students, about 1,500 faculties and staff.
There's a great offer, brilliant suggestions. Can I just mention that finally, after a lot of effort, we've got a great project, giirmit project being run in London. A very resourceful person called Ajay Chhabra is running that with a group of people. So finally, we've got a group of people in London who can set up the center. We in Sydney are ready to assist in any way, and Ashok ji is there in New York. We may be coming towards the end of the 2 hours I've slotted in. We initially wanted to speak for 30 minutes, but it was very productive. A lot of good thoughts and suggestions have come up. And I suggest to Ashok, we coordinate with each other and coordinate another session where all of us can join together, and we'll take the suggestions further and turn them into some practical actions. Ashok?
I just want to add one comment to this. In listening to the conversation started an hour and a half ago, I've made some notes here, and the political side is not guaranteed. The economic side is more of a business venture. The academic side is neutral, and there are much more opportunities there, whether it's the direct universities, JIS, or others, because the states themselves fund them. And so that is a good avenue for inroad. So we have to look at that as an entree.
You recall in 2019 when we co-sponsored the conference at Banaras Hindu University, we agreed to help underwrite a center. And I would like to remind Professor Sham that we still haven't received anything from Banaras Hindu University. We have been a couple of times in touch with Professor Kapil, but he's more into historical things in Bombay and Delhi. And I would like to ask Professor Sham to reach out to me with some conversation. So, because I think Banaras Hindu University can play a central role in this whole thing. And I know that the university in Jharkhand, they were there at the conference in 2019, and they have expressed great interest. So I would like to suggest here that we use BHU as a central rallying point and try and through them work with other universities. But again, to remind Professor Sham, we are still looking for the hearing from BHU, our foundation is, and see how we can work with you guys.
It doesn't mean that I'm willing to do too much, but my only suggestion is that any attempt to open an independent center in any university will be slightly difficult. As again, I fully agree with Pathak sir that the proposal goes to the government of India and it stays there for a couple of years. So please try to connect with already established center or department like Department of History, Department of Sociology, Department of Political Science, where you will find number of professors, who have either worked on these topics or they have some sort of soft corner for these issues. The personal involvement is very essential when it comes to connecting giirmitias with the homeland or with the motherland. And that's why it doesn't mean that I'm very much interested in having a centralized system here at Banaras Hindu University and replacing a centralized system that exists there in Delhi. My attempt is Banaras Hindu University may be a place that can connect with Lucknow. Dr. Satish Rai, Lucknow University started a small course on Indian diaspora. Allahabad University, I'm not claiming that we were the first one to start a course on Indian diaspora, but of course, many ways we were the pioneers here in North India. Hyderabad Central University, Gujarat, Central University, Gujarat State University, and thankfully, my entire education was in Delhi at JNU, and because of that, I have connection with all the universities where diaspora is being taught. In fact, we can connect at the academic level also. But when it comes to common people from the Guyana, Trinidad who would like to go to the villages, how to connect with them? Certainly not through bureaucracy. Many of us who were born in small cities and towns, we have our ancestral villages where still those old systems exist. It is not very easy to penetrate there. And that's why my suggestion is not only Banaras Hindu University, like for example, Magad University, Patna University, Gorakhpur University. Many of your ancestors came nearby Gorakhpur, Azamgarh, which is just 100 kilometers from Varanasi. And most of these district headquarters are having university. What I can offer that being here at Banaras Hindu University and associated with Department of History, probably I can connect with most of the history departments in the universities and colleges which are located at the district headquarters. And my one thing is that compared to bureaucracy, professors are still relatively honest. They are willing to work and help out people without any financial gain. Because if nothing, then at least they can produce one article out of that. And that has happened in case of Magad University when I helped my friend Himraj to discover his ancestral village through my friends from Magad University. So that's my comment.
That's a great offer. We'll take that up, Dr. Sham, Professor Sham. I'm in communication with a number of young, recently graduated professors in Delhi, and one is near Azamgarh as well. As I said, we tried to have a Global Giirmit Center in Azamgarh itself. So that's one of the actions we have to take as we go further.
It was a good start, and I'm glad we had different voices on different topics and ways to proceed. We also came to the conclusion that we have to do it on our own, but solicit the help of those institutions in India that could help us to get there. and at the same time put the muscle behind it from our own side in these different countries to make a big effort going forward. So I'll be calling you as well as others on this panel so that we can formulate a plan, and I'll share with you what I had proposed back 3 years ago on a global game society. So thank you very much, everyone, and then we will be in touch with you about the next event, next session, and
Okay.
we'll have a clearer agenda. This was
Okay.
the introduction.
Yeah, thanks, Satish and Ashok. Great work, and
Thanks, Dr. Rai.
Yeah.
happy launch.
Right.
Must what?
Thanks, Ashok. Satish,
Yeah, thank you very much.
and everyone else.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Namaste. Namaste.
Good night.
evening to everybody.
I'm so glad
Good
meeting
evening.
the new context today. I'm meeting Mr. Gosai again. We met in BHU 2019. We still remember that event. And thank you so very much for connecting for a great session. And we will meet very soon. Thank you, Dhanbad.
Thanks again.
Satish. Thank you,
Thanks,
Ashok.
gentlemen.
Thanks,
Bye.
Dale.
Okay,
Take
good
care.
evening. Bye.
Okay. I'm ending this now.